The next example here, this is going to look at the corporate feed network for the antenna array. In this case, we've got some phase, some Wilkinson power dividers, and we can see, again, we're using operating modes to define multiple beam states. And then when we apply the schematic back to the FDTD simulation, we can look at the radiation patterns and see how they change based on the phases that are applied at the phase shifter. So for this example, we talked about the 4-element patch array. We had 4 circuit components that are defined for each. We ran an FDTD simulation, which gave us that 4x4 S parameter matrix. We had a far zone radiation pattern available, a full 3D pattern, and then we could come into our schematic and I'll zoom in first. So this is the FDTD block, the FDTD simulation that brought in that 4x4 S parameter matrix. We then went and hooked up 4 different phase shifters to each, and then we put in a series of Wilkinson power dividers, which is our corporate feed network, and that brought it all back to our voltage source, port 1. We have operating modes defined here, so we have 4 different beam states, and if I look at them, beam state number 1 is using a 0-degree phase shift across each. Beam state number 2 is applying a 30-degree delta between them. Beam state 3 has a 60-degree delta, and beam state 4 has a 90-degree delta between them. So I can solve this circuit, I can graph the results, and if I'm looking at the reflection coefficient here at port 1, I can see how that reflection coefficient moves around depending on which beam state that I'm looking at. And if I move out of the schematic and come back to my simulations window, I can again come in and post-process, apply a circuit simulation. Again, there's one schematic, one simulation, but then I can select my 4 beam states. That will allow me to create a second simulation window, a second simulation here in the window. Again, these results are instantly available, and so I can come into my result browser. I can scroll down and find essentially my 4 3D radiation patterns and grab the gain for each and view them. And so this allows me to view the results one at a time. So these are the different beam states that I have selected, or I can view them all at once. But basically, again, just another example of how we are able to take a 4x4 S parameter matrix, apply phase shifters to them with different operating modes, and then apply the schematic result back to the FDTD simulation, where we can then look at the far zone radiation patterns for them.